Calhoun County Museum and Cultural Center for our third annual Black History Month program. For those of you who are visiting us, welcome. And for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Jeremy Stedemeyer, and I'm the director of the Calhoun County Museum and Cultural Center. And before we start the program, I would like to ask you all to silence your phones. The bathrooms are located through these double doors right here and to the right. I would like to thank Mark Claxton for all his hard work in getting this program organized. His work does not go unnoticed, so please give him a round of applause. After the conclusion of today's program, the museum will be open for you to walk through if you would like. Please excuse our mess as we are in the process of cataloging our collection and revamping some of our exhibit spaces. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mark Claxton with the Gina Group.
Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the Gina Group, welcome you to our third annual Black History Month program. I'm not going to be long-winded. I just wanted to welcome, greet you, let you know a few things. We have some refreshments on the side of the room. We have some water and some sparkling cider in the back of the room. And at the conclusion of the program, we have some gift bags that are located on the opposite side of the grid as well. So please, as you feel the need, avail yourself of these refreshments, and at the conclusion, we'll start to hand out the gift bags. But welcome to each of you for attending here. And now we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I'd like for Pastor Golden to come to the front because he's very loud.
Now you know, right?
I don't mind starting the Pledge of Allegiance, but Lift Every Voice and Sing, even with them big, solid voices. So I ain't gonna talk about me later. So if you could stand, please. Take the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When we sing together, lift every voice and sing, you'll find the lyric verse that's on the back of the book. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the lifting sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stone the road we trod, bitter the chastising rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with the steady have come over a way that the tears have been waters. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past, down in the stand where the white gleam of our bright star is past. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever on the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hands, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you. My name is Fred Golden, pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church, president of the Yeshua Group that was founded about 11 years ago. 11 years ago, a group of men came together and decided that we wanted to do something for the community, and we wanted to help those gain information and knowledge about who we were, where we were going, as well as some other issues. Throughout the years, we've done things such as political debates, which some of you may have heard about, when we had candidates in this particular area. Once we met at the courthouse and a couple of other places. However, we have continued to grow and to continue to do other things. A few years ago, Mark Jackson decided that we need to do something different for Black history. So we began to contact the museum, and from that, this day was born. It has been 3 years now. This is our third year, I believe, that we have been here. And it has been good every year. It continues to grow, and we hope that it continues to grow from here. The purpose of this is to bring information, knowledge, and the community together to learn about the history of this particular area, St. Matthew, Fort Mott, and the surrounding areas. So today, you will hear about that through our presentation. Again, I'm glad that you're here. Our perspective is to enlighten you, empower you, and engage you into conversation, into activities as we continue to go. Although we know that Black history is the month of February, Black history was not made just in the month of February. It is a year-long thing. Therefore, hopefully in the future we will continue to celebrate, not just in February, but we'll do things throughout the year to commemorate and to think about and to promote the history of African Americans around this particular area. This particular time, we will have a Mark Jackson come again with a poem called Spoken Word. Following him, young Minister Mark, as he's coming. First of all, let me let you know that only a few of our members are here because some of them are serving other things that are going on. Why is that funeral? No, is that? But can I just ask you, Jim, members to stand, those that are here? As your home, and there are others that are part of this particular group. You have an opportunity, if you're interested in being part of it, at the end to also join and participate in the Jim group as we go forward. Again, thank you.
The poem is called The Bronze Legacy, and it's written by F.C. Newsom. "'Tis a noble gift to be brown, all brown, like the strongest things that make up the earth, like the mountains brave and grand, even like the very land, even like the trunks of trees, even oaks to be like these. God builds his strength in bronze, to be brown like thrush and lark, like the summer rain so dark. Nay, the king of beasts wears brown. Eagles are of the same hue. I thank God then I am brown. Brown has mighty things to do."
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm just going to introduce our cousin Jackie Goodwall.
Yeah.
Jackie was the youngest of two children born to the late Ron, Levi, and Rebecca Whitman. He was reared by his maternal grandmother, Lucinda Jackson. Lucinda Jackson Whitman, and his paternal grandfather, Chappelle. He grew up in the London-based community of Columbia. A 1987 graduate of Ware High School in Columbia. Jackie completed his undergraduate studies at Howard University in 1993 and earned his master's in social work from the University of South Carolina in 1999. He works for the Essex Department of Health and Environmental Control, DPEC, and all that health as a community social worker. He also served as a professor of social sciences at Whitney State and Wisconsin. A lifelong member of the body of church in that family. Whitmore served as a deacon and one of the church's historians. He was a proud veteran of the South Carolina Army National Guard and served for two of duty in Boston. He's an active member of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. With the help of family and friends, he successfully navigated the installation of 6 historical markers across South Carolina. Highlighting African American history in Lincoln, County, and Williamsburg County. He led an effort to erect memorial stories in Fort Knox, South Carolina, honoring his relatives with Senator Samuel L. Duncan and Representative Edward Axon, who served in the South Carolina legislature during Reconstruction. He also created the Bill James Historical Display in Fort Knox. He coordinates 40 meetings, the United Family Meetings Descendants and related families of the Landmark Pension, the Bloomington Meeting, the United Levi Meeting, and the Old Guard Legislature. Jackie is married to Miss Stephanie Tucker Whitmore. They have 2 children, Jackson and Rebecca. After the spoken word, please welcome our cousin Jackie Whitmore.
At this time, I'd like for you to look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor,
Neighbor,
today, you are here.
you are here
At a historic moment.
at a historic moment.
Thank you. Today, we celebrate 100 years of Black History Month. Today, we celebrate 100 years of Black History Month. So if you will, just for a few moments, I want to read this to you and share with you how it all began. Today, I want to take you on a journey through 100 years of Black History Month, a movement that began as a single week in 1926 and grew into a national and international observance. Black History Month started with one man, Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of Black history. Woodson was a historian who believed that Black contributions to American society were being ignored in textbooks, classrooms, and public memory. He was one of the first African Americans to earn his PhD from Harvard University and he dedicated his life to correcting the historical record. In 1926, Woodson and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History launched what was then called Negro History Week. He chose the second week of February to honor the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two figures closely associated with the fight against slavery and the struggle for freedom. Woodson believed something powerful, that if people understood their history, they could better understand themselves. He once said, those who have no record of where their forebears have accomplished, what their forebears have accomplished, lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. For him, history was not just about the past. It was about empowerment. Over the decades, Negro History Week gained momentum. Schools, churches, and community organizations began participating. But the real turning point came during the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. As leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks challenged segregation and injustice, Americans began to demand a fuller understanding of Black history and its role in the shaping of the nation. By 1976, the United States bicentennial, Negro History Week had officially expanded into Black History Month. President Gerald Ford called an American to honor the too often neglected accomplishment of Black Americans. Since then, every U.S. president has formally recognized Black History Month in February. Today, Black History Month is observed not only in the United States, but in countries like Canada and the United Kingdom. Each year, the Association for the Study of African Americans' Life and History selects a theme focusing on topics such as Black residents and art, Blacks in residence in art, health and wellness, and economics, empowerment. These things remind us that Black history is not one story. It is an innovation, leadership, creativity, struggle, resilience, and triumph across every field: science, politics, education, business, sports, and the arts. Now, after 100 years, some people ask, do we still need Black History Month?
Yes.
It's an important question. Ideally, Black history would be fully integrated into every textbook and every classroom year-round. But the reality is that many stories remain untold, and many contributions remain overlooked. Black History Month creates a national moment of focus, a time to reflect, to learn, and to recognize both progress made and work still being done. And perhaps most importantly, it inspires future generations when young people see scientists, inventors, artists, leaders, and activists who look like them. History becomes personal. Possibilities become real. But if we truly want to honor 100 years of Black History Month, we must remember Woodson's original vision. He did not intend for Black history to be confined to 1 month. He saw this observance as a starting point, a catalyst for continuous learning. Black history and American history. It is the story of resilience in the face of slavery and segregation. It is a story of innovation despite barriers. It is the story of a movement that expanded democracy and pushed the nation closer to its ideals. As we mark this 100-year milestone, the question is not just how we celebrate, but how we continue. How do we ensure that the next generation understands the full story of our shaped past? How do we build a future shaped by knowledge rather than omission? The legacy, Carter G. Woodson, reminds us that history is powerful. It shapes identity, it shapes opportunity, and it shapes the future. 100 years later, Black History Month is still doing what it was created to do, telling the story that must be told, and reminding us that those stories really matter. At this time, as we bring forth Jackie Whitman, he's going to come and share with you more of those stories and that is. Let's give him a hand.
Good afternoon. I was saying to myself, I was thinking, I didn't know Gordon was going to be the speaker today. We appreciate Reverend Golden in his comments. I want to start out by telling you I'm very happy to see you on this day. It was a great turnout, y'all. I'll tell you, I'll listen, y'all. I want to start out by saying thank you to the youth group for the invitation to come here and speak today. And I also want to say thank you to the Calhoun County Museum and Cultural Arts Center at Jeremy Schoolmeyer for his efforts to bring this activity down here to St. Matthew. I have a lot to say, y'all know I do. And I want to make sure you all get what I'm talking about. I'm going to move back a little bit because I want you all to see. I want you all to be able to see the slide. Let me start out by telling you all something. Reverend Golden just talked about the importance and the significance of Black history. But I want to start out by telling you all, President Barack Obama wrote a book, and the title of that book was called The Audacity of Hope. And what he was chronicling and talking about was the plight of African Americans in America. And one of the things that he was highlighting specifically was the boldness of the African people who came to this country in slavery to hope. They have the boldness, the audacity to hope that things will be better for their generation and their children to come. That's a powerful hope when you think about it. When you talk about story about people and all these coming over here in slavery and all that, they had the boldness, the hope that something will be different for the generation to come. That's some old stuff. So he's celebrating the audacity of hope, the boldness of our people, the hope we want better for us. As I start talking about this journey, it's important for us to be talking about telling our story, the importance of telling our story. Now, what I'm going to talk about today might make somebody a little uncomfortable. Well, as my grandma said, get yourself together. Get yourself together. Because it's going to be just that. Get yourself together. Because also, the story is what it is. It is what it is. The story is what it is. We just talked about the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, but then there's also the 250th founding of America. That's what I'm going to talk about today. 250th founding of America. And it's interesting for us, particularly as African American people, because America is on this great height to talk about the founding of America. And who founded America? You know what we call it, the 4th of July, Independence Day, all that. So we're talking about that now, about that. But one of the things that's missing out of that whole conversation, for the most part, is the recognition of African American in the founding of America. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I said to myself earlier, once upon a time, you would not have had or would not be having these kind of conversations because you wasn't allowed to talk about it. And that's the true fact. You couldn't talk about it. This is why we are having this issue that we're talking about now in the story. I want to tell you, my grandmother, and I'm going to talk about her in a second, she used to tell me these stories about her people and everything. I grew up with my grandma. And so you all know, you all are my mother's people, and Mark Rich about my cousin. Now, y'all know all y'all in this place. So you all are my mother's people. My mother's people were from this area. My father's people from Williamsburg County and Clarendon County. But you all are my mother's people. And I grew up in the home with my grandmother. And my grandmama, she used to tell me stories about her people and growing up. And you know, the kids used to have on here today. Oh, God. But she made sure I got what she was telling me. I remember a little kid going to school, and I was telling a story about something I learned in school. And I was telling about John Henry. He was by the name. He did this thing called what this story is called? John Henry. Tall tale. And I was telling her about this slavery. My grandma said, and then we were talking about, yeah, everybody was in slavery. She said, everybody was in no slavery. I said, yes, well, that's everybody was in slavery. She said, well, my granddad was in no slavery. My great granddad was in no slavery. I was just, what you talking about? She said, he ran away from slavery. They ran off in the woods and lived off in the woods. They didn't play that. I said, what are you talking about? She said, they didn't do that. My granddad and them went off, and she was telling a story. Oh, when she was telling me that story, I got hyped up. I said, what? So I was so proud and happy that I came from somebody who didn't do that, who was bold enough to say, I'm not gonna do it. And she told me the story. She said, Grandpa never spoke like Africa. She said, you couldn't hear what you couldn't understand what they were saying. We call that go. We call that go language. She said, he spoke like Africa. And she said, Grandpa, he planted rice near Lang Zion, in a place called Buckhead Creek. And she telling me the stuff. I'm listening to her telling me. He planted rice near Lang Zion, a place called Buckhead Creek. She told me that story. And they were proud of this kind of story. These are the kind of things we have to chronicle to tell our children. I am so happy and proud to see the young people. Y'all give it up for little kids. That's how it's going to keep going. That's how it's going to keep going. Let me do a litmus test before I get into my presentation. How many of you all, now, don't feel bad about this answer. How many of you all can tell me your parents' name? Raise your hand. Pay attention to me. How many of you all can tell me your grandparents' name? Okay. How many of you all can tell me your great-grandparents? Pay attention to the room. How many of you can tell me your great-great-grandparents? Four people. Somebody said they gotta ask that. This is a big issue, y'all. If we talk about history, this is a big issue. We can tell other people about everything in the world, about everything, but we can't even tell our own story about our own people. So that's my challenge to you all today. When we leave here today, to think about what I'm telling you all, so you can go back to your children, your grandchildren. And listen, write it down. I said this at church Sunday. When I did a presentation, like I just did about 20 of these things, but I'm so tired. But I did a presentation, I was telling them, during Christmas time, during birthday time, then tell what you need to give your children. Instead of giving them money, give them a card, you need to give them their family history. You need to give them their family history. You write it down, put it together, package it up real nice, and say, this I'm gonna do this for your birthday right here. This is a picture of your great-grandma. This is a picture of your granddad. This is a picture of your great-great-grandma. Oh, you in the store trying to buy a card and a birthday card. You ain't got all day for that. Hey, give them something of value that's going to mean something to them. So they can have it down the road. They might put it somewhere where they say, listen, that's all right, I gave it to you. So you can have it. That's the kind of stuff we need to be doing to chronicle our children and our stories. Let me get into my presentation. Okay. A tour of Fort Martin. Now, you know, I'm a history buff, and my people are from the great capital of Fort Martin, South Carolina. That's where I'm from. That's where we're from. We almost the capital of South Carolina. Now, the story goes, we missed it by one vote. And I always say my great-granddad was working in the field and he didn't get it. But this is almost the capital of South Carolina. We missed it by one vote. So I'm going to talk to you about today about Africans, the African Americans of Fort Martin, the descendants of colony founded of America 250 years ago. Now, some of you all who are avid historian people in here probably going to say, well, what does he have to say about what did he find? Not a whole lot. I didn't find a whole lot. But I am gonna talk about some things that's gonna make you think about who was around during the time of Rebecca Mott. You know who Rebecca Mott is? Let me tell y'all who Rebecca Mott is. Rebecca Mott, we're gonna get into her in a bit, but she's the person that Fort Mott is named after. And Fort Mott is a big deal in County County, and a big deal in South Carolina, because it was a strategic area for the Revolutionary War, which brought the independence of America from England. Right down there on the Cumberland River on Highway 601 at Fort Mott, that's where the name went down, right here at Fort Mott. That's how Fort Mott got its name, because of the skirmish that happened, the little battle of Fort Mott that happened. That's how it got its name. The question is, in coming down the line, well, who were the people on the scene? So when they tell the story about Rebecca Mott and Fort Mott, they tell a story about Rebecca Mott. They tell a story about Francis Marion, Lifehorse Larry, Lee, Green, and all these people. They tell a story about all these people in the great battle they had at Fort Mott. But that's all they talk about. That's all they talk about. We gonna talk about something else. Look at that, Jeremy. Where's Jeremy?
Other way, other button, other button.
The other button? Hold on. Okay. So I got a little disclaimer. My little disclaimer says, please do not record this presentation. Okay? I got two people recording this, and this is for a reason, okay? Now, Jeremy and I are supposed to be doing this, but Jim and I don't know what happened. So, my aunt told me this book one time. All those guys one time, somebody did the church story. All those guys one time, somebody did the church story. I told you all about how this got started by my grandmother, and about how these stories got told or did not get told. And then put the things down on paper, we talked about that. And the last time somebody told a story about my family was, as I always say today, I mentioned this thing about Pompey King. That was another story my grandmother told me about. Pompey. Pompey was her great-great-great-grandfather. He was the father of her great-great-grandfather who ran away from slavery. And the story goes that Pompey was the king of this village of people. The village of people, what? We got a village. She said, oh yeah, he was the king. Pompey was the king. So we refer to him in our family as Pompey the king. Isn't that a great story? That's a great story. I came from Pompey the king. This is my grandmother and my grandfather. Now, they are both from Fort Mott. My grandmother was the root of all this stuff that I'm talking about right now. My grandfather, he was from here from Fort Mott too, but he died when I was like 3 years old. But I can remember him vividly. My mama giving him coffee on the little sauce, and we sit with the sauce and stuff, all that stuff like that. This is my dad, and this is my mom. Now y'all see where I get my videos from. That's my dad. This is my aunt Daniela and my uncle Wilson. Now, and Daniela and my grandmother were actually cousins, but they grew up, and we call her Daniela. But she was a great matriarch of our people that were 108 years old. She was the one who chronicled and told all the stories about all of our people. A little bit about Fort Mott. We know it as Fort Mott, Calhoun County. Before it was Calhoun County, was Orangeburg, but before it was all that, there was all these other places like Franklin County, Orangeburg, District, Orangeburg, Parish, St. Matthews Parish, all of that, way back. It goes back a long way, 1700, 1600. So at the time of the Revolutionary, the Fort Mott area was part of what we call St. Matthews Parish, which is part of the larger Orangeburg district. One of the other things we miss in this conversation about the founding of America is the Native American. You know how we always say, my grandmama name was Indian. I'll tell y'all, maybe, but the Indians are gone so far long ago, I don't even know we can trace the Indians before that. But they were around. They were actually the people on this area. The Congaree River is named after the Indians. All of the rivers in South Carolina, for the most part, are named after the Indians. The Congaree, the Wateree, the Santee, the Congaree, you name the PD, all those were Indians. And so that river that runs through Fort Mott through Calhoun County down there, that was the Congaree River. The Congaree River. Now this is not a Congaree Indian, but I just want you to get out of here. This is a picture of an Indian village. I own my great-grandparents' property at Fort Mott over the door. We own a property. And the story goes that that's where an actual Indian village was. So they go through it and do the excavation and find all the remnants and everything like that. So they were there. They were there to know that our people as well. These are some of the artifacts that we found at Fort Mott. Our friend Kevin was found at Fort Mott. They are real Indian artifacts at Fort Mott. Real. Conwy River is a very important, significant story as I'm going to get into this, about our history and our people. We don't think much about this river, other than going by it, crossing over it, we don't think much of it, we just look at it. But I'm gonna tell you, this river was some serious business for a lot of reasons, because in older times, the only way you could get things up and down from Charleston and everything, you had to ship it through the river. There wasn't no roads and things like that. So goods, people, slaves, whatever they had to go, cotton, everything was on the river. You can imagine that now when you look at the river, you look like, I don't know. Yes. Actually, on the Conwy River. The river swamp. When I told you the story about my grandmother talking about grandparents running away from slavery, and living in the woods, these are the places that they live, off in the woods. Now, she told me the story about grandparents, and she used to say they came from someplace. She used to say that. I said, what other places they came? I can't remember, but they came from someplace. So I'm thinking like Africa or another place like that. But as I looked into it a little bit more, I found the description of his children. It said that they were from Beaufort, South Carolina, which is interesting, which to me solidifies the story. They came from someplace. And in order for you to come from Beaufort to Fort Mott, you had to come from someplace. And you had to travel to do that. And I like the story she tells about they ran away. You better not have to make your face known to you. You run away from slavery. So what you gonna do? You gonna hide in the woods. That's what this is all about. The Conwy River Swamp is a very significant part of our story. The use of the Conwy River was slavery and war, shipping slaves up down the river, rolling slaves, removing from the war. Conwy River, as we talked about that, and how it runs and how it goes from Columbia all the way down to the Lone Star. The place that Lone Star is called Low Fall Land. Y'all might go down there and fish down there, Low Fall. Y'all get fish down there, Low Fall. Well, right there, the Conwy and the water we need to make the mouth of the santee right there. This is a neat article, y'all. I love this article because this chronicles what I'm talking about, where our people were during this time. This is a newspaper article from 1801 and talking about a runaway slave, and his name is Monday, like the day of the week Monday. And it talks about Monday, he ran away and they looking for him. Listen to this. He is delivered to any plantation, ran away from the subscribers plantation on the 11th day of June, a Negro fellow of the Congo country. Remember I introduced us the African Americans of the Congo country, about 18 years of age, and had he ran away. They talk about when he had on homosexual clothes and all that kind of stuff like that. Listen to this. He had his face and forehead in the shape of a diamond, and his teeth filed fork, answer to the name of Monday. So my aunt never told me the story. She said, my mama told me the grandparents were sharp and they filed their teeth. Yes. This was something from the old country that they did. This was something that they did in the old country. And I love that story about Monday because what is that? Here you go. Because I did ancestry DNA. And when I did ancestry DNA, I have 21% Cameroon and Congo. This is a neat thing because what happened is, in the fight to try to understand our story, we try to understand where our people came from. Okay? Buckhead site, 1760s. This is a sign that Mr. Wanamaker, his wife we here in the back. Mr. Wanamaker was on what's called the Rebecca Mott Monument site in Fort Mott. It's called Buckhead Hill. And this is the marquee at the front of the sign talking about Rebecca Mott and what happened. Rebecca Bruton Mott, this is a picture they have of Rebecca Bruton Mott. Now, the Black history, when I really want to talk about Rebecca, you don't want to talk about our people, I got to talk about Rebecca. So I'm going to talk about it. So Rebecca Mott was the sister of a man named Miles Bruton. And Miles Bruton is very important to us as African Americans in South Carolina because he was one of the biggest slave traders in the country at that time. He and a guy named Henry Lawrence, thus Lawrence County, South Carolina. And he owned plantations down at Fort Mott. Miles Bruton. Okay.
Now, Miles was in a little trouble because Miles was on the boat doing something, I don't know what they say, traveling back and forth from here to New York, but I don't know, but anyway, the boat went down, so Miles and you got killed on the boat. This is another news story. One of our cousins did her DNA test, and guess what came up with her DNA test? Oh, she kid to Rebecca Moore. She said, I can't wait to see this. So this is an interesting story because according to the story, Rebecca Moore had all girls. Listen to this. Rebecca Moore had all girls. Now those girls got married and they had children. Now I don't know if it was Rebecca Moore's grandchildren or great grandchildren, but somebody in some way got something going on because we did it. This is also an interesting thing I was talking about the DNA and the importance of understanding our story. This is a note from I spelled his name wrong, but this is a note I found from 1775 about Reverend DeSantis talking about in his journal. He was an old-time reverend in the Revolutionary time. He chronicled things that happened. I thought it was an interesting note. He tells the story that Henry, a mulatto bastard of Anne Maria Kimberly, was born in 1775. He tells the story about this little boy being born in 1775. I don't know who Henry is. I don't know what the connection is. I'm telling you about where our people were during this time. Fort Mott. So this is the Battle of Fort Mott. This is an interesting picture to me because this talks about the Battle of Fort Mott. Now, here, this is a trench. This is a trench right here, going all the way around. Now, this is where the monument is at right now, where the monument is supposed to be. But this is how they built the trench to build the fortification down there at Fort Mott. Now, if you look in this picture, I went back and tried to count this because I want to see how many people was in this picture. You know how it is. These things are people's imagination of how things work. They weren't really there. They don't. And I think it was about 20 people in the thing. But I read this article where when they got ready to dig the trench, Mayor Francis there, one of the guys, he ordered Colonel Thompson's slaves and Rebecca Mott's slaves to come and dig the trench. Now you see 20 of them down there, now boys up there, I ain't taking the photo. No boys got that nigga late. They got that nigga after the trench was built. Our people were going to build the trench. Because it tells the story that the Africans, the slaves were the ones who built the trench. I'm going somewhere with all of this. We're talking about 250 years in the continent of America and who was on the scene during that time. I'm about 20 of them. I know when 20 of them built the trench. I know they did. So you have to wonder who built the trench. I got a better question. That's a nice house for Rebecca Moore down on people. Who built that house? Who built that house? We have a student, our friend Kelly Esther. She's a teacher at Dutchport High School, and she's been a great partner with us, in collaboration with us about some of the efforts and things that we've been doing here in County, especially to clean up a True Blue Cemetery and the other cemeteries. And she brings her students from Dutchport, and she incorporates their learning scheme about all that they do in that program. One young lady, she drew this picture for us of what would be a African American slave, African American during the Revolutionary War. See, we don't have a picture of that. We don't have a picture of what an African American would have looked like during the war. I don't know if you've been gallantly dressed or not, I don't know, but I just love the picture. I love the picture. So this is our picture that she created for us. And this is how we're going to be doing that in the month. So her name is Princess Johnson. Come and give a princess for her. The title, I named this person Champagne. I named him Champagne. Because in our family, there is a Champagne Reese who was born in about 1799, something like that. But in the old records, I found Teresa had here. Teresa found a very interesting record that after the war, Champagne was like, oh, but he was still on the scene. And while he was on the scene, his name initially was Champagne McCord. And then they put his parentheses Reese. That's the name he knows as Champagne Reese. So we named him in honor of Champagne Reese. Actually, no. Enslaved laborers carried supplies and treasures and were present in the Battle of Fort Mott, but their names were never recorded. This is the note about Black history, because that's why we have Black history. To
tell our story because their names were never recorded. This is an article I found on Kelly Handy and our stuff talking about the runaway slaves down at the colony or the colony swamp. The Africans of Rebecca Mott Colonel Thompson, who were the African slaves and descendants, did they get compensated for their work? I'm gonna talk about it. Since the call was for freedom, were they set free? This is Marion at first, thus Marion at first passed the gathered slaves from Mrs. Mott and Colonel Thompson and other neighbors whose those with William Bull. This was easily accomplished and the work soon began. These states that he established camp 40 yards directly north of the fort with a deep veil between the two hill drops. This is overestimated. The beginning of the sap was closer, about 200 yards from the indicating penetrating ground radar area where they did the radar stuff over there. Related to work department provided 4 hours. Basically, what he was saying is that the black people were on the scene. They were on the scene. They were on the scene. This is how you start validating the story about you. Colonel Thompson Place, if you come across Highway 601 from Columbia, you cross the bridge, 601. As soon as you cross the bridge, you're at Fort White. And you were right there smack in this place right here. This was Colonel Thompson's house. That house was right there smack, they say, in the middle of the road. To the left of that is a cemetery called Belleville Cemetery. This place is called Belleville Plantation. To the left of that is Belleville Cemetery. There's a cemetery there. On the hill, there's another cemetery called Belleville where our people, African Americans, were buried at. And further over to that is the Light of Zion Cemetery. So if you're on Highway 601, it's like road. You're on 601, Woods, over to the left, you come to the Light of Zion. That's the road. There's a lot of reading, I ain't gonna read all this to you, but this talks about what happened after the Revolutionary War, after the battle. People are done the trench, and did all this stuff like that. So the question becomes, like, what happened to the people after this? What happened to them? You know exactly what happened to them. After the war was over, they put them right back on the plantation. It's interesting because they were the people who were fighting for the independence of America. They were the people who were fighting for the independence of America. The promise that, everybody was going to be free. And when they got free, they became slaves. This talks about all that, about what happened, and it's interesting because historically, we wouldn't recognize these names of these people who went on our work. They were Thomas Pinckney and James Dallas. I think the last name was Douglas, but I'll talk about it. But these were Rebecca Mott's people. They were her people. So I got all these things that talk about all this, what happened to the black people after how they were hired out for different things. If you were on the plantation and you needed some help on another plantation, you could hire John out. John, if you $20, you get John $1. If you gave John $1. So that's what all these articles were about. 1797, letters talking about what happened, things that we observed. This is also very interesting, y'all. I'm talking about me, I'm talking about me. My great-great-grandmother on my mother's father's side was named Jane Jeffers. Jane Jeffers. And Jane Jeffers go back to these people, Barry and Allen and all these people here. Now, they were actually in the Revolutionary War. They were in the war. And they actually applied for a pension during the war. They applied to get a little check during the war. VA compensation was better than what I'm talking. They applied for their VA compensation. Now, this is interesting because they were listed as free people of color. Free people of color. Now, they had a little thing going. The grandma in this whole article talking about how she had to go to court to validate she being a free person of color in order for her to get her little compensation for her. Rachel Jeffers, this is grandmama, my great-great-grandmama, this is her sister, Rachel Jeffers, in the census in 1880. And then this is one of the grandmamas back on right there. Look at what she was born, 1766. I wonder, can I give you a check for this? 1766. The joiners, now this is a census tract from 1840. And every one of those people that I just showed you, Barry Jeffers, Osborne Jeffers, all of them are listed right here on this census tract in Richmond County. This is my great grandmother. Her name was Mary Jane Joyner Gibson. It's my great grandmother. And her mother was Jane Jeffers, which was the descendant of the Jeffers. This is a document of a slave sale, 1794. This is also what I really want to talk to you all about. This is the census tract for what we call Amelia Township, which would be Fort Mott, St. Matthews area during that time. So my friend Dr. Donaldson and I went back and we took an inventory of the census to take a look to see who in the census in 1870 would have been around during the Revolutionary War time. And it was an interesting project. Do you know there were a lot of people in this 1870 census that were still around? They were 80 years old, 100 years old, all that kind of stuff. But listen, I hope you get the word. These are a lot of people. 1795, 1805. Other census records of the people, 1813, 1801. And so I had a whole list in 1790, 1798, talking about, but we had to go back to try to find out who was on the scene. Remember, there was no documentation of it. Nobody wrote their names down. They didn't have last name. People spake on that, they didn't have a last name. You only had your first name that you belonged to, John, Miss Maud, or whatever. You didn't have a last name. So these census tracts are very important to understand. Hundreds of our people were still on the scene doing that. The people were old, but they were still on the scene. Nobody interviewed them, nobody asked them any questions, nobody said anything. If you see anything, nobody asked them anything. So this is very important. This is a Holy Census Tract, 1870. The last name, these names are so important to us. You see the last, you can see the last name was Kashif. Kashif. That's the African name, Kashif. But in the census, it became Cash. And those of you all who are part of the people at Mount Carmel Church and all that, you might know the name Cash in the connection of the people down here. That's where they came from. This is 1870, Joseph Scott. Look, Joseph Scott was born in 1772. Still alive. Still alive in 1870. And Letitia Bonaparte was born in 1830. Thomas Crusoe was born in 1796. Now, what I like about his note is that it says he was born in Africa. You don't see that as much. Because we thinking that Africa was so far removed. No, it wasn't that way. It wasn't that way. He one generation out. One generation out. And it says that that's what he was born at in Africa. True Blue. At True Blue in 1870, there was this note about John Adams. He was 106 years old. He was born in 1764. That's what the census did. Also, I mentioned to you about Willis Cash. Born in Sylvia Cash, his wife, 9 years old. Born at Fort Mott. Amelia Township. This is also history. Also history. So, if you were from a Lone Star, you got any connection to Lone Star, there's a place in Lone Star called Good Old Plantation. You know, they have a Good Old picnic every year, right? So a big name in our people at Good Old was the last name Sad. S-A-U-D, Sad. And it's big in my DNA. So this talks about committed to the work out there. Runaway, another, you know how people in the state belongs to them. They ran away a Negro man by the name of Billy. And then he belonged to Joseph Sabb of the late Amelia Township, whom he said he left the coast of Africa by consent. So they say in the article that he said, okay, y'all gonna take me to America, I'm gonna go with y'all. That's what they say. I don't know. That's what they said. They said he left by consent. He wanted to go. Well, if you want to go, what you ran away from? What you ran away from? So, think about what it says, and that Morgan Sabb, who is the brother of the boy, said, Joseph Sabb, now resides in Texas. He is 5 feet 7 inches, criticized black complexion, and is a carpenter by trade, and appears to be 46 years old. Now, this guy, this was in 1813. 1813. So he's 47 years old. I'm happy, but if he's 47 years old, I ain't been around a long time. I don't know when he came around. I don't know what time frame they voted for that. And you gotta think now, this is 1813. And in America, they said the slave trade ended in 1801, something like that. Okay? That's what they say. You know how that goes. That's what they say. So that's important. Now, the other important thing is you see the name Morgan Sab, and you see the name Joseph Sab as white people. How about if our people, we're descendant of a Morgan Sab? We're descendant of a Morgan Sab. So Morgan Sab evidently was named after Morgan Sab. Joseph Douglas. This guy is very interesting. Very interesting. Joseph Douglas lived in Philadelphia. He was what you call an absentee plantation owner, but he's a descendant of the Sterling Heatley family way back that settled in Media Township. Joseph Douglas. If you ever flew in an airport called Dulles International Airport, voila. He's the foreparent of the Douglases at the airport in Miami. And at Lang Syne, where our people are from, there's the Douglas McCord Cemetery, because the Douglases is part of the family that owned Lang Syne Plantation. Now this is 1817, this is a bill of sale of a slave from Joseph Douglas. Now, Joseph Douglas lived a long time. I can't remember if Joseph Douglas the senior or Joseph Douglas the junior, but one Joseph Douglas is the person that sold our people in Good Hope Plantation in Lone Star, 250 people. He sold them in 1859 to a man from Abbeville, South Carolina. I want you to listen to this very closely because he's got a lot to do with everything I'm talking about. He sold them all from Lone Star, Good Hope Plantation, sold them to the man, he took them to Arkansas. And they walked from South Carolina to Arkansas. And they took them a year and a half to get to Arkansas. This reminds you of the story of the Trail of Tears. It reminds you of that story. I think it was even more horrific than that. Now, I'm telling you this, when I'm telling you these things, I'm not just telling you this because I'm telling you this is a real documented story about these people and what happened to these people in this book. Now, I'm gonna talk about what happened to those people a little bit later on. But this guy right here is the guy who sold Joseph Douglas. Good Old Plantation slavery, 1797. So these people had owned the plantation so far back, they kept records of the people on their place. And the first person that go back on the record was 1797. 1797, Isaac, and then Flora and Samuel. Now, then it goes down 1784, after there's a whole documented list of the people he had on this plantation, who was born, who had children, who died, they got all of that documented. Right? That's that Lone Star. That's that Good Old Plantation. 1797, I'm talking about people who've been on the scene during the time of the This is another part of the slave record. Come on down a little bit later on. 1856. This is a map of the abstract of the Good Old Plantation. Y'all, these people own some of the land till it was ridiculous. One place, Good Old Plantation, was made up of 3,925 acres. So if you come across Highway 601, you make a left and go to the first one, what it is, 267. Starting there, somewhere that's going all the way down to the river, all the way down past the 3,925 acres. That's how much one place is. Now you got to think about the other places that they own. You know, like Zion, they own Goshen, they own Farmington, and Belleville. Thousands and thousands. They own the whole county. The whole county, one place. Now, they didn't farm the whole place, but they own all the land. Okay? Which is very, very interesting. I was trying to figure this out in my mind. How you survey 3,000 acres? Who does that? What you doing? I was like, you know, back in the day, I guess they had not plus not equal not or something. I don't know how they did it. 3,000, it would have took you 20 years once to survey this place. I don't know. But that's how they 3,925. This is a part of the story. This is my great grandfather. This is my great grandmother's father. His name is Daniel Anderson on this side. And this is Louis Mazie. Now, they all were part of the Good Old Plantation, right? Now, Louis Mazie is a part of the people that were sold to Arkansas. My great granddad was the people that actually that stayed. They didn't send everybody off to the plantation because some of the people were old. Because some of the people were old, you had to have somebody stay back to help take care of those people. So they sold those people or transferred them throughout the community. So, but Louis, Missouri was one of those people that went to Arkansas. When we did the ancestry DNA, Louis, Missouri descendants come up on my DNA like second cousins. Second cousins. Second cousin, not first cousin, but second cousin. That's pretty close to DNA. That's kind of a strange DNA. But those people, we went to Arkansas last year. I'm talking about it. We went to Arkansas last year to the place that they sold out people to Cheryl, Arkansas. We did about 4 or 5 days in Arkansas. Do you know in 1945 there was still a court case going on about the sale of good old plantation from 1771? All this record, still in 1945, they still out there fighting about the land. About some issue about the land, asking questions about the land. And I want to tell you also, in 2004, I tried to get the date right, I couldn't remember. But in 2004, we went to tax sale, and there was a reference to 60 acres of land of the original Good Hope Plantation being sold at the tax sale, right here in California. That was in 2004. So this land is still around in transaction. It's still going on. 2004. I didn't have the money. I had the money out of the park, but I didn't have enough, so I couldn't do it. This is where we went to Antioch Church, where they sold out people off to Arkansas. This is the church that we went to, where they, that church puts me so much in the mind of Haynes Chapel Church down in Rome. It just puts you so much in the mind. But that's where they sold out people at this place called Cheryl, Arkansas. We did a trip called Church and stuff like that. This is an article from 1791 talking about the sale of True Blue Plantation. So you know True Blue is right here off of 601. Right here off of 601, and there's a True Blue Road, and there's a True Blue Cemetery. Okay? The people that owned True Blue back at one point in time, last name was Singleton. And the Singletons owned True Blue Plantation. So this is the 1790. But it's even before that. 1783. When they talk 1783, when they were talking about selling the land. So when we did a marker for True Blue Cemetery, this is part of the information we use to have reference establishing the time. Thompson Place, at Belleville, Louisa McCord. This is also interesting too. So while this wasn't in Revolutionary Wartime, this was talking about the connection of the people in the plantation. I'm telling you all these things because it's interesting when we start talking about our history. The lady here named Louisa McCord, she's talking about this letter about a transaction of a slave. He was her father's favorite mulatto slave, his name was June. She's telling the story about June getting on her nerves. She said, June, he stopped bothering me because he get on my nerves, and I'm trying to tell him he can't do what he wants to do. June wanted to be free. And June wanted to be free because the other slave was telling me, he said, oh man, you need to get you free before we die. You need to hear him talk to him. And she went back and forth with June. She said June was good looking, clever, and smart. And he was her father's favorite mulatto slave. And June need to sit about his wife Priscilla and them 2 kids he got. That's what you need to do. You need to be doing that. You don't need to be that. She asked June, June, you gonna be free? Where you going? What are you doing, June? June said, I don't want to be free. So she's writing her brother back in the day about June and everything like that. So the straw broke, and she sends June away. She sends June away to Charleston to the workout. And she sends June's wife and his children to Louisiana, to Rachel. And Rachel would be Rachel Spain. Rachel Turquoise Spain. And Rachel had a daughter named Anna. And Anna had a daughter named Rebecca. And they Ida. And Ida had a daughter named Rebecca. Rebecca had a daughter named Lucilla. Lucilla had a daughter named Rebecca. That was my mother. So I just said this very conversation that these people had. So they sold out, they sent June away and all that. Now June went away, Priscilla died, and had 2 children. Joseph Stewart and Mary Ann Stewart. And Mary Ann married Grandma Rachel's son named Thomas Turkman. You know the last name here is Turkman. That's the last name you know, Turkman. All these, we all the same people. This is Bill with African American Cemetery where Colonel Thompson was born. This cemetery. This is a historical marker about Lang Zion Cemetery. Stan family 270. John Stan and Rachel's. John Stan. I just told y'all about Rachel. This is Rachel who we sent the little kids to at Lang Zion. This is Rachel. This is my grandma. And living with them was my grandma Ida and their granddaughter Sylvia Ravenel. Sylvia Ravenel. Those of you who are part of the Ravenel family union and all that, that's where this comes from. You know, we get to talk to connection about Viola Davis and all that. That's where Viola Davis comes in. She come in under Sylvia Ravenel. Sylvia Ravenel had a brother named William, and that's Viola Davis. This is Grandma Annie. Grandma Annie is my third grandma back. She's Rachel's daughter. She's John and Rachel's daughter. And my grandma was talking about her like she was sitting next door, like she was sitting there. They were talking about it, like you knew about her all your life, grandma, because they talked about it so much. This is her sister-in-law, and Sue. They were married to two brothers. This is what I was telling you about the death certificate where it said grandpa came from someplace. Beautiful South Carolina. That's where they came from. The Bryants. This is important. As we talk about this about African Americans, we talk about the founding of America. One of the things that's interesting is the name connections of our people. The name connections. Because we only think about the names we know. That is it. That's a long way off the mark. If you say like the name you got, you got to go back because blood supersedes the name. Blood supersedes the name. Remember, it was scripture about people had no last name. So you can only go by what they gave you or what they told you. But through DNA, you can make all these kind of connections. Like I told you about the Sam, the Doses, the Churchland, the Haynes, the Green. My last name is Bartley. Where do you come from? The Bartley. I don't even know. How you get to be on my DNA? The Bartley. Where do you come from? I don't know. But it got something to do with Velvet. Velvet. Haskell is a big name in my DNA. Now, those of us who are African American, and we got people in our family, first name was Haskell, right? But the last name, the surname is where it came from. It's the white people named Haskell. My name is full of Haskell. Full of it, right here, that the ones from the plantation, full of it. So it's really interesting how Haskell would be the surname and our people got the first name. My granddad had a brother, his name was Haskell Whitman. And my grandma's brother, my mama's brother, named his son Haskell Whitman. He named his son Haskell Whitman. And there was a Haskell Mosley, and there was a Haskell Cheeseburger. We got a lot of Haskell in our family. There's the name Sarhaven. Sarhaven. Now, that name is really strange. You might have heard the name Sarhaven. If you're old enough, you remember the name Sarhaven. If you go down Highway 601, going like you want to go to your left, there's a place called a little road called Hemlock. Right there going into toward this Hemlock, a little road. But to the left of Hemlock is a cemetery. You wouldn't necessarily know it was there. The name of that cemetery is called Sarhaven. The old people call it Sarhaven. Sarhaven. But the real name is Sarhaven. The people can pronounce it, so they pronounce it Sarhaven. But Sarhaven was a name that go way, way back. That cemetery we get in several times where our people are buried in that cemetery right there. That was a part of this property that we own. Sarhaven. There's the Stewarts, there's the Cheeseburgers, there's the Kicks, and the Lovers. In our cemetery, on our office, his name is Will Lover. Now, old man Lover was married to the lady that owned the plantation at Lang. I don't know get to be out here. I don't know, but we all can. I don't want to get into this part too much, but this is about Richmond County, people of color. As I told you, everybody was under the rule of slavery. Some of the people were free. Some of the people were really actually free. That's what they were told. So this talks about Richmond County, free black slaves, during the years of the time. In 1830, you got 493 right in Richmond County. Listen to this. In 1830, they got 9,036 slaves in Richmond County at that time. That's a lot of people. This is the point I'm trying to make about the radical model where our people were in the Revolutionary War time. That same system applies in the fact that you have more black people than you have white people. So in order to get the work done, you had to have the black people get the work done. That's all I'm trying. This is just typical one of our relatives, Angela Allen Boston. She was from Richmond County, 1837. She was 86 years old when she died. And her dad was from Richmond also. So there were a group of these men that married. Her dad was one of those men from Richmond also. This is also interesting to me, y'all. Not a whole lot to do with the Revolutionary War. I just take this, I just need service as a commercial for you all. This is my uncle. His name was Milton Whittle. And I think it's so powerful as we talk about black history and all that. So he was in the World War I. And so he filled out his draft registration card, right? And when he filled out his draft registration card, he lists all the information. He working for the railroad people, he from down in County, down in Lone Star, and everything like that. He talks about it. But he gets over here to his race. And when he gets to his race, he right on here that he is white. He's right on here that he is white. But look at what the register says about his state. Everything is true about this party except that this party is not white as he put it. That is a powerful note. That's one of the most interesting things I found in all the history stuff that I've done. You are telling somebody what you are, and then somebody else will tell you what you are. This is the plight of our people. This is the plight of our story. You can't even tell nobody who you are. They gonna tell you. You are not white as you claim. Now, if you claim you was white, you claim you was white. But who are you to tell me that I'm not? Now, the story goes, after the war, he had a very bad bout of getting in. Because everybody else was white. He wasn't as light as his sisters and brothers. You know what I mean? So because he wasn't as light as his sisters and brothers, he had a time trying to get in. And he drank himself alcohol. Right? I just think this is a powerful note. And we talk about history, we talk about our own history, we talk about our own people, complain about people. Even during that time, you couldn't even say who you were. We were doing an exhibition at Fort Mott. We got this little museum, the African American History Museum in Fort Mott. It's called the Haynes Center, named after our cousin Benny Haynes, because he did all the work down here. And I'm gonna tell you, you should see it. If you ever been to Fort Mott, you need to go down and check it out. Now, if it's not open, the doors on the side, it looks just like the train depot in Fort Mott. You can open the door. It looks like you can walk in, but you can't. There's a display right on the wall. But there's a beautiful history on the inside. And just when we did the excavation of the place, they found Kelly knows. Well, Haynes found it, but Kelly knows. We got with them about it. They found this cannonball on our site in Fort Mott. So I take the cannonball to USC, and I told the guy, I said, Fort Mott was a Revolutionary War time. I said, well, maybe you came from the Civil War. He said, no, that was supposed to be Civil War time. I think it was like Revolutionary. So we go back and forth. So I said, well, you need to firm up what this is, man. Is this the Revolutionary War or is this the Civil War time? He said, well, I eventually would say that it was the Revolutionary War time. Now, that's an interesting conversation to have because you ain't know them fighting down in Fort Mott. You know them people fighting on the river. How you got the cannonball down there? But it also goes to say, you don't know when the people was fighting. I don't know what they were doing. All I know is you did with the cannonball. When you do with the cannonball, you more likely to see. I ain't got to do it. This is the tree at Langline Plantation. Y'all, I love this tree. I take really to the tree because I can because my grandma told me. She said when they start burying people in the old cemetery, they start burying them in what we call the Sunday school, which is where Langline Cemetery is now. She said in the old cemetery, this tree is in the old cemetery at the big house. They don't allow people to go up there now as much. But that tree, and many of those trees served as the tombstone markers for our people, but they weren't the tombstone. It's just the people. Those people with ancient folks. That's how far back our people built the city. I got another question for you. If you talk about African American history, if you talk about all these people been around, where those people buried? Where are those people buried? We all the 500 slaves at once, because this was a time that you got to think about increments of time, 10 years, 20 years at a time. If you was in the Revolutionary War time, where you bury those people at? If you came out the war, where did you bury those people at? That's a very interesting question about where these people are. All over. All over. So this is that line line big old this is another picture here of my cousin Annie, and that's Amy Peterson. We were in Langine, and she is one of the last of our old people living from Langine. Yeah. So I want to Mark back there, right? You can send me a big house in Langine. So, let me tell you. So I coordinate the United Family Group every 2 years, and this is the year for the review. It's going to be held in Fort Mott. Part of it is going to be held in Fort Mott in conjunction with the Fort Mott Community Investment July the 4th. It's going to be actually on the 4th. I'm extending the invitation to you all because our coordinator, George Haynes, raising his hand. That's our also down there. George coordinates the festival. And everything that I talked to you all about and some is going to be on display and a part of the reunion activity during the event. We're going to do tours, we're going to Lone Star, we're going to Good Hope, we're going to the water, at Overall, we're going to do all that we did before. We're going to Lake Zion, we're going to school, we're going to do all of that as a part of the reunion activity. So if you're on the lookout for that information, get in contact with us. George is down here in Fort, in the area, you can get them. They go all the people at Mount Zion, all of them, Ken Carroll, Devin, Mark, all of them out here, all of them out here, you try to get the information, get to them, and they'll get the information to you. Now, I couldn't call out and highlight everybody because all of us kids is too much of us, I know what it is, but I guarantee you, all of you on something or another is in this family. I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to come share with you all. I hope you all are taking into consideration what I'm talking about today. Not just talking, I want you to think about what I'm talking about. Where our people were when they started up America. Thank you. We're so grateful for our cousin. Time constraints, stuff like that. We say thank you, so we would be here. But I'm gonna take, so thank you very much. Yeah, let's give it another round. I'm gonna take this time to acknowledge the passing of the Reverend Jesse Jackson on February 17th. I think it's very special and poignant to have our program here. It's just a week or so after his passing, and I wanted to read this little thing about the Remember Jesse Jackson. It's basically just bio. Because I realized that a lot of people, and this really is generational, my son will not have an understanding of the significance of Jesse Jackson like I would have. And for those people who 2 or 3 of y'all could be possibly older than him, y'all have a different understanding and appreciation for the legacy of Jesse Jackson and his contribution. So I wanted to, by reading this, I'm hoping that people will kind of readjust their understanding or thinking of the significance of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. is one of the most influential civil rights, political, social justice leaders in modern American history. Born October 8, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina. Notice I said Greenville. I used to say Greenville. But since Pastor Gold from Greenville, he said they don't say Greenville and Greenville, they say Greenville. So I say like a green bullion. On October 8, 1941, in Greenville, South Carolina, Jackson rose from humble beginnings to become a powerful advocate for equality, economic justice, and human rights. As a young man, Jackson joined the civil rights movement and worked closely with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as the field organizer for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He helped lead campaigns for voting rights, economic opportunity, and racial justice during the 1960s. In 1971, he founded Operation Push, which is People United to Save Humanity, to promote economic empowerment, educational opportunity, and social justice in Black communities. He later established the Rainbow Push Coalition, advancing civil rights, equal rights, participation, and opportunity for marginalized populations. Jackson made history in 1984 and 1988 when he ran for president of the United States, becoming the first African American to mount a serious national campaign and win millions of votes. His campaign energized diverse voters and expanded political participation across racial and economic lines. Beyond domestic civil rights work, Reverend Jackson has played an important humanitarian role on the global stage. He has negotiated, and this is what I remember Jesse Jackson so much for. He has negotiated the release of American hostages and prisoners abroad, including efforts in Cuba in 1984, Syria in 1984, and Iraq in 1990, where he helped secure the freedom of detained Americans during periods of international tension. His diplomatic interventions demonstrated the power of moral leadership and humanitarian advocacy beyond politics. Throughout his life, Jackson has championed fair housing, education access, workers' rights, peace initiatives, and corporate accountability. His signature message of inclusion, often expressed through his Rainbow Coalition vision, emphasizes unity across race, religion, and economic status. Some notable Reverend Jackson attributed quotes are, "Keep hope alive. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it. Never look down on anybody unless you're helping them up. And inclusion is not a matter of political correctness, it is the key to growth." Jackson's legacy will continue to inspire movements for justice, civic engagement, and equality. His lifelong commitment to civil rights reminds us that progress is achieved through courage, persistence, and collective action. And with that, we remember Jesse Jackson at this time. So thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson. And this part of the program, so this part of the program, I'm approaching on the next position. This part of the program we have it down as community announcements. You see on your programs, but I want to take this time one thing is to acknowledge the presence of our representative Jerry Goldman, State Representative Jerry Goldman is here. And I did that not, I'm not calling up all the VIPs out here. I did that because Reverend, it is hugely significant that he's here because he was part of a huge effort to make sure that the state of South Carolina honors and remembers Reverend Jackson, instrumental in ensuring that the governor would allow Jesse Jackson to apply to lie in state, which is hugely significant, considered a federal government. And I wanted to, and some of the ceremonies that are going on over the next several days, just in honor and respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson. So I wanted to give Representative Goldman an opportunity to perhaps share the story. I know he shared a little piece of the story with us the other day, and I was hoping he'd be willing to do that as part of this community announcements thing. Y'all got something real short coming up. After Representative Goldman has a few words, feel free to make those statements there. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Mark, and to the Juma Group and to all of you here, to elected officials, ministers, leadership, and everyone in their proper places. And I want to give honor, of course, to God because, when Jackie was talking about the connections and whatnot, I just want you to know that we're all related to Noah. I just call his name. I was asking, I was sharing with Mark, and of course, Reverend Jackson will line state at Capitol here in Columbia, South Carolina on Monday. And the body will line state, it'll be a short from about 11 o'clock in the morning. It'll be a special close session with the family, but the line stay for several hours. So for those of you who are interested, there'll be an opportunity for the public to view Reverend Jackson. But I just want to share this to the young people in the room because I don't think we really understand the importance that South Carolina, natives of South Carolina have played in shaping this country. And Reverend Jackson is one of those individuals. And very briefly, just think of it this way. If there were no Shirley Chisholm, there would not have been Jesse Jackson. Shirley Chisholm was one of the first African Americans, the first African American, and black female to run for these presidency of the United States. And if they were not for her, then of course that led to the young man that you just heard about, Jesse Jackson. And the importance of that is this. Jesse Jackson, who was a native of South Carolina, native son, our native son, in 1984 and 1988, made those 2 runs. But if Jesse had not made those 2 runs and raised a foundation here in the South that impacted not only Democratic politics, in terms of politics for the Democrats, but also for the Republicans, because those 2 runs, basically along with another gentleman from South Carolina, by those 2 runs laid the foundation for the primaries of the South, the rising economies. The Southern primaries laid the foundation for the South to become key to electing the president of the United States. The gentleman at that time in the DMC by the name of John Fowler. So just as running those 2 times to John Fowler, that's what laid the foundation for the primaries in the South, which eventually led to South Carolina being first in the primary state. So if it were not for Jesse, there would not be a Barack Obama. But then it can also be said that if it weren't for Jesse, that South Carolina would not be the state that everyone, whether you be Democrat or Republican, you have to come to where? South Carolina, you're going to win the nomination for Democrats or the Republicans to become president of the United States. That's why President Biden was here last night in Columbia. That's why we saw the election of individuals like Georgia or Bush, and why the Bush family is so prominent here in South Carolina. And to be honest with you, that's what laid the foundation for Donald Trump to make his return. So what I'm saying to you is that we have significant South Carolinians, the roles that they have played as Jesse Jackson, the most significant politician that we've had come to this state in our modern era. And so if I could, I'd like to start, can we just stand for a moment of silence? I'm reading someone on the rise. Thank you so much.
I'm not gonna take appreciation to Jackson Whitmore
for all of the
preservation of Fort Mine and Calhoun counties.
Thank you again.
At this time, once again, we'd like to thank everyone that came out tonight. All of you that have parted or forget to also have an opportunity to tour the museum. Once again, want to ask all of the museum group to stand. I remember the museum group, and some people missed it last time, I want to make sure they did it this time. And if you are interested in being a part of the museum group, you can see any of these guys here, and they can give you information as to how to become a part of the museum group. Again, let's give these plaques in the hand or and finally, I think that's all. Also, we want to honor, we know that we're made up of the giving group, which is basically all men, but we couldn't do this without special women who come along and help us do a lot of stuff. I want to give these plaques in the hand. Every year she makes sure She's always been there to make sure those extra things done. So please, let's give her another hand. Since this is the 100th year for Black History, it has been suggested that we do a group picture. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure out how to do this. You going to come and figure out how to do it? Okay, I should have known. But anyway, how you doing? I'm getting out the way. Again, thank you for coming. Give yourselves a hand. Group picture, so we all get it, and we're going to try to make sure that we get this.
And don't forget, so we have refreshments along the side, along the wall. We want to make sure everybody gets a gift bag. So I want to point your attention to these very specially made charcuterie cups. I learned how to say charcuterie, but they're charcuterie cups.
So I want to ask you all to please stay to take a picture. This is very important. As we talk about history, it's very important that we document everything that we do, everything. Because it'll come a time when some of us are not here. And we'll have this to show the generation to come that we did this and they were here. You know, we had this, at the movie table, we had this thing where we had this picture, that picture you saw, my great-great-grandma Anna on that picture. My aunt had that picture at her house. And when my grandmama asked her for a copy of the picture, she would not give her a copy of it. But many years after my grandmother died, we went to visit her, and I told my cousin, I said, you all take video of the picture and everything. Like they did all these videos and everything of the picture. And I took the video and took it to the camera people, and they tracked it and made it negatives and made the pictures. And that's how we got the picture. When we got that picture, my aunt was furious. She was furious because she said, if I wanted y'all to have that picture, I would have gave it to y'all. Listen to me very carefully. She died, the picture got lost, everything gone. Well, guess what? We got the picture. And I'm telling y'all that because things like this are so important. Now, how we gonna do this?
Don't forget, we have been doing this for the last 3 years, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year. So when you hear about it, make sure that you come back and participate. Every year we normally do something different. We recognize everything. This year was bring Jack here and talk about history. So as you hear about it, just know that this is where we are. The Geo Group is become a part of our life. Okay.
So I'm pointing the picture because I do this at family meetings all the time, so I know exactly how to do it. When I tell you about it, I'm not doing it. So we're gonna take some chairs and line them up in the front for the elderly people to sit on, right? And the rest of us, we're gonna stage up on the back of the stage. So y'all come on up, come on up, come on up, come on up. The young kids, we're gonna like
Hey, I'm good.
Where the kids at? Where the young kids at? Where the young kids? Where the young kids at?
All right. Good. All right. Hello there. How are you? How y'all doing?
Everybody
I'm gonna tell y'all. This is like the Come on in a little bit. Come on in. All the way down. There you go. There you go. Go ahead.
You like to see something? Thank you. All right,
You there?
yeah.
Everybody.
Today, what y'all doing? Look, we y'all about to get a picture?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, come on, get on in. Y'all, this is a beautiful picture. Y'all want to see these citizens up here? Y'all want to see these citizens? We gotta make it. Nobody want to So my wife and daughter, y'all didn't know that shit. Y'all still y'all saw it? Y'all know we look good.
You know how to say smile.
I always tell them, you know, can't know too bad, you find some people. You gotta get them all. You gotta get Oh, come on, you get in, Mark. Hold on. Kelly, you get in and then Mark can get I don't think you know what you're doing, though. Either way, so appreciate y'all.
Activity will be on the outside Facebook page as well as the
Go get warm.